Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to A Taste of Landline, our weekly showcase of the very best in Australian food, farming and more. On today's episode, the gentle giants which helped build Australia.
You started at 4 o'clock in the morning and you fed your team of horses before you had your breakfast.
That's a boy.
The mysteries of biodynamic farming.
You've got this symbiotic relationship between fungi in the soil.
And
Citrus.
Hello, I'm Sean Murphy. Australians spend $2.8 billion a year on wine. And with more than 60 different regions and dozens of wine varieties, consumers here are certainly spoiled for choice. There's even biodynamic wine, but only the most discerning buyers would be aware of the mysterious forces at play there. The golden autumn light is just a bonus for Dave Carpenter. He's spraying his Canberra vineyard on this day because it's a 3/4 waning moon.
The moon is waning, and these are times when we see the soil absorbing moisture.
It's not just the cosmic calendar that makes the Lark Hill vineyard a bit different. It's also what's in the spray. Dave and Sue Carpenter are biodynamic farmers and they rely heavily on Preparation 500. It's the starting point for managing their vineyard, and it begins with fresh cow manure.
So I'm packing these cow horns, and we use cow horns because they have a closed end, and Dave's then sealing it with clay so the worms can't get in, and we will then bury it. And in spring we'll dig it up. And it'll just be like the most inoffensive soil. But it is a starter kit to stimulate fungi and soil.
The Carpenters went biodynamic in 2003 to help them adapt to Canberra's lack of water and long dry spells. Every year, they bury their manure-filled cow horns for 6 months over winter.
It's a total and holistic system of looking after your farm, whereas in organic farms, it tends to be a hands-off matter where you say, I shall not cover you with chemicals and I shall stand back, suffer. Whereas a biodynamic system is always supportive with mulching, with soil nutrition.
So what happens to them now?
They just sit over winter. We'll cover them with what we've dug out of the hole, and they'll just be quietly resting over winter in the soil. You've got this natural relationship, this symbiotic relationship between plant roots and fungi in the soil. And one of the first things you do in biodynamics is to try and get carbon into the soil. You try to stimulate soil microorganism growth, including fungi.
After it's dug up, the preparation is diluted in a flow form, a gravity-fed trough designed to imitate a mountain stream and enhance the power of the 500. Critics say biodynamics is more about mysticism than science. But before establishing Lark Hill, Dave Carpenter was a visiting fellow in mathematics and physics at the Australian National University. Sue Carpenter was a statistician with the CSIRO.
I'm quite happy for us to have our own satisfaction from knowing what we do. I don't have to feel that I need to justify our actions to anybody. It's not woogie crazy head stuff. It's much more pragmatic than that, and it's using a system that has been shown to help agriculture.
Biodynamic farming is not new to Australia, but in the past decade or so, some serious players in the wine industry have grown their grapes under the system. One of them is Cullen Wines at Margaret River. It's one of the region's oldest and most successful brands. At Cullen, every day is governed by a strict cosmic calendar. Fruit, root, flower and leaf days dictate when to harvest, prune, or even just let the grapes grow. These Semillon Blanc grapes were harvested on a full moon to take advantage of the additional cosmic energy.
When the moon is in the constellation of a fire sign, it's good for fruit. So today is good for fruit, so we're harvesting. And that's also made stronger by the fact that it's a full moon.
Vanya Cullen produces some of Australia's finest wines. Her best can sell for up to $350 a bottle. Going biodynamic in 2003 was an extension, she says, of the philosophy she inherited from her late parents, who established the Cullen Vineyard nearly 50 years ago.
How we're farming is how people used to farm before chemicals and industrialisation. So you were connected to nature, and we were always minimal chemical inputs with mum and dad, and then we went to organic. And then when mum passed away, it was sort of like feeling like there was something else we needed to do, and the biodynamics came up as a sort of way to go inside out, and felt right.
Vanya Cullen studied zoology before winemaking, but she admits biodynamic farming is as much about faith as it is science.
I don't think we've got anything to prove. I mean, I look at the quality of the wines that we make, and that's the bottom line. It is about working very hard and observation, and in that it is scientific through observation, but you also do have to have faith, but I think people do anyway.
Put aside the cow horn manure and references to the cosmos, and biodynamics is really just a natural farming system with an emphasis on soil microbiology. But it's one with a long history and a colourful story. And in the wine industry, there's nothing new there.
This is our reserve, and it is a touch of luxury.
It's very light. I like it.
For most consumers, all that matters ultimately is what's in the bottle. And while that's important for producers, being biodynamic is much more. It's about sustainability and being good stewards of their environment.
The most important thing is the earth. It's like we come from the earth and we are dependent on her for everything. And so if we don't look after her, then we're not looking after ourselves.
They are the nicest animals to own, as well as a great business venture. We've got a significant number of children between us. We wanted to have lots of opportunities for them as well.
So nice hot pan, beurre fondue. Okay, what's happening here? This is just to moisten it, and obviously
the city folk still alpaca, and please just try it. But yeah, it's just a more challenging, that city mentality, I suppose.
Hello, I'm Pip Courtney and I'm in Mora, a WA wheatbelt town 180 clicks north of Perth. There's a new industry in town though, citrus, and the owners of this multi-million-dollar orchard say horticulture could be the future for the area. On an undeveloped sheep block at Mora, an hour northwest of the home farm, Sue Middleton and Michael Brennan literally bet their farm on oranges and mandarins. The first trees went in 9 years ago, and more than $20 million later, Mora Citrus is a 170,000 tree orchard selling fruit into the WA market as planned and exporting to Asia, which wasn't.
These are the washies from yesterday's pick.
Even though full production is 5 years away, the aim to take a chunk of WA's citrus market off South Australian growers has been achieved.
That juice. The guys in South Australia do a fantastic job. I mean, they were our inspiration for what we wanted to do. We looked at how they supplied right across, the whole growing season, and we went, that's exactly who we want to be. And then, really what's happened in the market since then is a lot more of the fruits going offshore, and so that's really then made it possible for us to be able to achieve our goals.
Try that, mate.
Look at that, mate.
Perth fruit wholesaler Egidio De Jesus says his customers were making inquiries weeks before the first fruit hit the market. He says its popularity is easy to understand. A US navel might be more than 40 days old, while a WA navel might be just 4. He says fresher fruit tastes better. And he explained to this Eastern States reporter a quirk of WA shoppers.
They love Western Australian, anything Western Australian, but especially the citrus, they love it. They are very anti-produce that comes from Eastern States or overseas. But, we've got beautiful fresh produce in WA, so we should be supporting it. And we're seeing that more and more. Shoppers are asking for Western Australian fruit.
These oranges are headed for both big supermarkets and the independents.
Yeah, what do you think of it? Isn't it beautiful?
And it's in store where Sue and her stepdaughter Lizzie Brennan get the word out.
Well, you're in luck. This is only 200 k's up the road.
Do you want some, hun?
When people come into store, I think they kind of expect it to be a promotional person. So when you say, would you like to try some orange from my farm? People are sort of do a double take and go, oh, really? From your farm? And I think that level of connection and that authenticity that people are looking for when they understand that you care just as much about the food that they're eating as they do, I think it gives an element of surprise to people that they don't expect.
So you're trying some of our mid-season navels. They're a Washington navel.
Mora Citrus aims to get fruit onto shelves 3 days from picking. Store manager Tim Jaggett says it does make a noticeable difference to flavour, which he says trucked-in interstate fruit struggles to match.
People always talk about, there's nothing quite like actually grabbing an apple from a tree and tree-ripened apples. This is as close as you're going to get to actually having a tree in your back garden and actually growing them yourself. 80% of my sales are done on looks and price, and then there's 20% on the actual taste. Now, once you've tried it once, which is the main game, then you're coming back week after week, and the customers know the name. They look for it every year.
The reason they taste so good is because we've picked it at the point where its acid and sugar level is right. We get it to the customer when that's absolutely at its premium. So when you eat that orange, it just tastes sensational, and you've got 10 to 12 days to have it in your fruit bowl because we haven't taken 10 days to get it to you.
Bringing Lizzie into the business to manage promotions and social media has made Sue and Michael very happy.
The impact that Mora Citrus has goes beyond that orange. It goes beyond the fruit bowl. It's created an awesome community around Mora.
But perhaps the most unexpected happy upside of the venture is this. The 20-strong crew from Tonga is here under the seasonal worker program. For most, it's their 5th year working here, and not only are Michael and Sue thrilled to have such reliable workers, they've been to Tonga to see the impact of what the pickers call their orange money.
Having the Tongans in the orchard singing and joking and laughing, and they're just friendly and really nice people to get along with, and I can't speak highly enough of them. They're just great.
The Tongans are earning 5 times what they'd earn at home.
We love it to be here every year. Mostly the money is good.
Are there lots of people back home who would like to be doing what you're doing?
Yeah, everybody would dream about to come over here. It's pretty good.
When I take the money back home, I can see a lot at home, and my family back home, they're really proud of it. Not only that, the later communities, and me and my husband as well, we're really proud of what we do.
Does it mean that you can buy your own house?
Yep, we just built our own house in our own land.
This orchard has given the town of Moora a big boost.
If this was still a sheep paddock, it would produce about $150,000 worth of income a year, and there would be less than a job involved in this. As a horticulture business, it will produce more than $15–20 million worth of turnover, which is going into the local economy, plus it's 40 to 50 jobs. So the difference is absolutely extraordinary.
That cooked inside a jar, that's what they're getting. They know it hasn't sat in a freezer for a couple of years.
Hello, I'm Tim Lee. Today we'll meet the gentle giants of the horse world, Clydesdales, and some characters like Bill. Harry, get up.
It's a gentler pace of life with echoes of an earlier age. The clatter of hooves, the jingle of harness, the rattle of carts and wagons. At an equestrian centre near Geelong in Victoria, the magic of the past lives again.
Magic is one way of putting it, but just the connection you do feel. When you're going well and the horses are going well, it's just everything comes together and they want to perform and do everything you ask, and the best we can do is give them the enjoyment of doing what they like and what they're bred for.
Clydesdales are the regal giants of the horse world. For centuries, in the country and the city, they were an integral part of everyday life, the original meaning of the term horsepower. Now this ancient tradition has a new spring in its step.
I think the days of people remembering seeing the milk lorry go down the street are gone. Those memories are gone now. So we're targeting at people. It's a whole new generation that haven't witnessed it.
At Bill and Beryl Jackson's place down the road, something is afoot. Before Mr. Whiskers can venture out in public, he needs a makeover.
Very dirty boy. Where have you had your head?
Smaller horses can wear shoes from the factory, off the rack so to speak. They don't need to be shaped by heat. Not so Clydesdales. Luckily, Bill Jackson is also a blacksmith.
With the bigger horses, bigger steel, 1.25 by 1/2 inch, must go through a forge, get them nice cherry red to white hot. So they're handmade, the purpose being is they're big feet, big horses, big shoes.
It's not a job for the faint-hearted. Punching out the nail holes means striking red-hot metal with a heavy sledgehammer.
Remember the blacksmith stroke farrier? Every axle that's on a machine, every bearing that's on a machine was done by blacksmithing. And that's how it was done.
Then the farriers arrive. Not just any farriers. Janice Lewin is a rarity. Till recently, she was for a long time Australia's only female farrier.
It is physically hard, demanding.
I'm glad I'm small, because being tall you get a sore back, but it is demanding. But if you keep at it, you stay fit.
With a foot as large as a dinner plate, this is no quick job.
I take a fair while to do a Clydesdale. I get the little Shetlands and the ponies mainly, and the workhorses.
That's where a strapping son in the shape of Will Lewin comes in handy.
A lot of core strength. Strength does come into it a bit when it comes to these, but as you can see, my mum can get underneath there and do it. It is possible. It's quite funny when you have an apprentice starting off, because they don't know too much about yourself and they're struggling there. And I say, just to let you know, my mother does this and they don't believe me.
Janice Lewin started farriery at 14, despite parental concerns.
My father believed that horses were on the way out and you should get a proper job, don't go shoeing horses. But 50 years later, here I am.
So with a full pedicure and a sparkling set of shoes, Mr Whiskers is ready to venture out in public.
One thing that the old horsemen and horse people don't say is that you actually have to love it. If you don't love it and you don't have an affinity with the animal, you can do it for as long as you like and it's never going to work.
The love of these heavy horses has been part of Beryl Jackson's family since colonial times, and the love has never wavered. Her parents made their living with Clydesdales.
As a child, my father had horses too, and I used to love to go with him out into the paddock in the dray and that sort of thing.
The Filbay family retained horses on their farm on the Bellarine Peninsula long after everyone else had changed to tractors.
It was a very early morning start. You started at 4 o'clock in the morning and you fed your team of horses before you had your breakfast. Then you had your breakfast and then you went back and hopefully they'd finished their feed. If they hadn't, you waited till they finished their feed. And then you harnessed them up.
But eventually, machines won out.
And we decided on a tractor, so we bought a tractor. But we didn't get rid of the horses. They did the light work, harrowing and that sort of thing.
Margaret Filbay had great success on the show circuit, winning countless trophies and ribbons, and her 3 daughters inherited her passion for Clydesdales.
That's probably where it all started, was from the last of the old farm horses that were at home.
Margaret Filbay still laments the end of the horse era.
1975 was when milk cart horses went out in Geelong. Well, that was the end of the era then.
For a long while, it seemed this tradition might also die out. But the Clydesdale Society's quest to attract younger members seems to be working.
You know, I hate to say it, typically in the past it's been a bit of an older person's sport because they've got the financial means to do it and the time. Carriage driving can be really exciting for the juniors and they can get a lot out of it, you know, and develop really healthy friendships and relationships out of it. We've just got to get them into it. And most of the time, once somebody's tried it, they get hooked.
Sally Morphy grew up with prize-winning ponies, but recently she discovered the charms of the Clydesdale. Now she's stepping up with Paris, a 3-year-old filly.
We looked after a friend's Clydesdale for a couple of years ago, and my husband, who is not horsey at all, he absolutely loved the Clydesdale. And ever since then, he has said to me, "Can we get a Clydesdale? Can we get a Clydesdale?"
She's delighted to see younger folks getting into the sport.
Well, I went to the Heavy Horse Festival in February when I picked her up, and I saw quite a few younger people and especially women there, so they seem to be a lot more popular now.
Josh Taylor got his love of Clydesdales from his father.
With a few other people, we put together teams and wheat wagons and a log buggy demonstration at Chuka Steam Rally every year, showing how the logs used to be carted out of the forest down to the rivers at the sawmills and transport by paddle steamer then. It's just the heritage and the industry of the horse that I like, and they're just a beautiful animal.
Josh Taylor's son, 10-year-old Jaden, is already an old hand.
So it's just selling the horse, so we get it out every chance we can for people to see the versatility of the Clydesdale. And it's great that we are getting younger people, and Jaden will be third generation, and there are families with generations of Clydesdales, but there are fresh people coming in that have not had Clydesdale experience. So yeah, there are a lot of younger people coming in now, and there is a future of the horse.
Yeah, go on, up you go, keep going.
At 88, these days, Margaret Philbay's carriage is a motor scooter. But some habits are unshakable, some bonds are unbreakable, and Margaret couldn't resist taking the reins once again.
She has a distinct touch for the horses, and she hasn't driven in probably 4 or 5 years, and she can just get on, and within seconds it's just all back there, and she can just go on from it, and it's just something. And you can just tell by her eyes the sheer pleasure, the shine in her eyes and her whole face. And today, with that horse, she just had an affinity with it.
I'm not boosting myself up, but I don't expect people to come in here and be able to drive like I'm driving, because I've had over 60 years experience. Come on, get up.
I must admit, it did bring a tear to my eye that I was just so proud and so chuffed.
Whoa. Whoa. Oh. Way. Whoa. Whoa. Good boy.
And it was just like she'd got off the cart yesterday. That was the clincher for me.
And that's the show. We hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, we're on Facebook and iView. Next week on A Taste of Landline, urban farms feeding the needy.
Sweet potato, it's so versatile, so it can go across any number of dishes.
The most expensive milk you'll ever buy. And freezing Aussie berries.